Hello and welcome to the latest of my series of short interviews with interesting atheists. This time my guest is Boyd Sleator. Here he is. Hello, Boyd.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How the devil are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good.
Good. Now, Boyd, you're in Belfast, aren't you? Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So tell me, what is your role there? What is your description?
So my role description, my job role is that I'm the coordinator for Northern Ireland Humanists, which is a section of Humanists UK. Really, a brief description is that I carry out all the or oversee or coordinate all the tasks or activities that Humanists UK carry out in Northern Ireland, which is quite a bit different in some ways to what Humanists UK or how they may approach it in the rest of the UK, simply because we have our own assembly, we have our own Stormont, so a lot of devolved matters there. So very large differences in terms of legal matters, large differences also in terms of how some of our community services are carried out, as well as our campaigns work.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether you know Andrew Copson, but I've met him a couple of times, and he's been a former victim of mine in the short interview.
Yes, well, yes, Andrew Copson, I consider him he is obviously the chief executive of Humanists UK, but I would also consider him a dear friend. He have a lot of time for it, yeah.
He is a lovely fellow, isn't he? Yes. Now, Northern Ireland has, it's a unique sort of place, isn't it? Because it's had decades, if not a century, of conflict of one sort or another, which has been not entirely religiously based, but the two sides tend to identify themselves according to religious labels. Do you have anything to say towards that?
Well, yeah, you're completely correct. Obviously, we're sort of divided along political lines in Northern Ireland, probably even more so than religious lines. Those political boundaries are incredibly important to individuals, whether they be from, for some of them anyhow, specifically from loyalist or Republican backgrounds. There will be a deep belief in how they want to see their community grow, their country grow, and whether that's part of the UK or whether that's as a united Ireland. And so that's where that deep-seated divide comes from in terms of what they're thinking, and then those lines do get split along religious lines as well. And it's tribalism, and it's a way of creating more division in ways. So it's not always healthy, and it's not actually healthy to label it in Northern Ireland as a Catholic and Protestant problem. It's probably better to define it as somewhat a political issue, and divide it along nationalist and unionist or loyalist and Republican lines.
Does the wall still exist in Belfast that was built to divide the two communities?
There are. I believe that there are still around about 90 peace walls around Belfast and possibly Northern Ireland. I know that there were 99 4 years ago, because a friend of mine, a Polish reporter friend of mine, wrote a book called 99 Peace Walls, and it was about the walls and the divide in Belfast, and she met with different people from both sides of the community to write a book on division in Northern Ireland. It was only ever published in Polish, but it was very interesting to talk to her and her experience of working with people from those different backgrounds in Northern Ireland. But yes, we still have peace walls, as they call them. They're not very peaceful, but some of them have started to come down, and in actual fact, there seems to be wide support for them to come down.
Probably because of the Troubles. Northern Ireland, the population of Northern Ireland seems to be very politically and religiously aware. You're all, the majority of you, it's dangerous to generalize, but the majority of you are sort of well educated in matters of a political and religious nature, which means that in your group, you've got 50% women. How I wish we could get that.
Well, yes, I think there's a number of reasons that we have a lot of engagement from people. I mean, first of all, a lot of the issues that we face in Northern Ireland were cleared up 50 years ago in England and Wales, and have been cleared up. So things like abortion rights or reproductive rights for women, there's 52 years ago, 53 years ago, they were dealt with in
1967.
Indeed, yeah. And so it's taken a very, very long time for us to be able to catch up to where the rest of the UK are on that. And so things like that are incredibly concerning issues. This same-sex marriage, which has only recently been legalized. All of these things are equality issues, which everybody in Northern Ireland can get behind, whether you're male or female, whether even there's lots of religious people get behind those arguments in support of them as well. There's wide engagement, really by a wide group of different people in Northern Ireland on the matters that we address. But saying that, it's also an element of, how you position these arguments and what way you're putting them forward, and how you engage with the audience that are there, who your membership are. I mean, keeping things. I mean, I'm on here talking to you, obviously another bloke sitting having this conversation, but there is our committee. We have a gender balance on our committee. We made sure that we have a gender balance at events. We make sure that we're always being aware of those things in front of us, and making sure that we realize that there's a massive audience out there for us to address. But I think one of the really good things for us is that we haven't had to consciously do it. It has been organic. When we started, there was both equal men and women that wanted to be involved with the committee. We have wide. Our community services are very, very equally matched in terms of men and women. We have our LGBT section, so there's it's been very organic, the way the organisation has developed and the way we've developed in Northern Ireland. So there hasn't been. There's only been a few occasions where we've had to say we need to have a gender balance at an event, where it's just been like, here are 3 or 4 great speakers, and it's like, well, no, there are 3 or 4 other great speakers out there. We haven't thought about all of these great speakers. So, but that very rarely happens. It's very organic. It seems to work.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it, because we may be ahead of you on the abortion front and maybe a couple of others, but you're certainly ahead of us on equality. In some things, I don't. In actual fact, no, I wouldn't say that at all. There are massive equality issues in Northern Ireland. Certainly, us as an organisation do incredibly well in equality, and there are many organisations out there that are incredibly good with equality. Even things like our Interfaith Forum here in Northern Ireland. We're members of the Interfaith Forum. I know some people would be a little bit weirded out by the idea of being on an interfaith forum, but they are even eager to frame themselves and frame their language, and what they do is interbelief. It's about dialogue. Yes.
And so there's a very sort of the way that we handle ourselves as an organization, and the way that many other organizations do, is a good example for how we should be treating equality throughout the rest of Northern Ireland and through our education system. For example, we have teacher discrimination. The way the curriculum's written in certain areas is very heavily influenced and has a Christian privilege influence element to it. Not just element to it, it's literally written by the 4 main churches. It's a massive issue. It's not written by education professionals, and it's not inspected. So there are many issues with equality in Northern Ireland, and there's many of them that we're trying to address, and successfully doing so. Actually, that's one of the. I think that's one of the other reasons that we have really good engagement in Northern Ireland, and that is that, in actual fact, we're successful of what we're trying to achieve. You know, we have in our community services, we now have volunteers working with inside the well, what used to be considered the most dangerous prison in the United Kingdom, which is Maghaberry Prison. Yeah. And we have 2 volunteers in there that are doing amazing work, and we have a 3rd volunteer has just come in there, and they want to expand the work that we do within the prison. So we're offering a non-religious pastoral care service within there, you know, and that's amazing. And the way that the prison services work with us in order to accomplish what we have so far has been excellent. We have our celebrants. We are actually ahead of the UK in terms of we have legally recognised humanist weddings. Yeah, so we applied to the GRO maybe 3.5-4 years ago to ask if we could be on the list of organisations that can carry out legal weddings. They said no, and we said, okay, we'll see you in court. And we went to court, and that's how we changed that process. And well, yes, we went to court, and there was a discussion about what the process moved forward, and then that process actually moved forward quite quickly. Our relationship now with it's the Department of Finance that actually deals with weddings and the legislation and law around it. Our contact and our relationship with the Department of Finance, and that is excellent now, and we're working together on that. So part of our success is being successful, you know, saying we want to achieve these things, and then showing people that we can do it. You know, and once we show people that we can do these things, they want to come on board, and they want to be part of what it is that we're trying to achieve.
You've got a reputation, haven't you? People want to join in.
Yeah. And that's great, and it's we've grown. You know, when I started with Humanists UK in Northern Ireland, which was just over 4.5 years ago, there were around about 250 or 350 people on their database with a BT postcode, a Northern Ireland postcode, and now we have I think close to 2,500. So wow. We've grown massively within a very short period of time, and we are still growing at the same rate. In actual fact, Northern Ireland is the fastest growing section of Humanists UK.
Brilliant, well done. So you mentioned education, and do you still have schools that are sectarian?
We never frame it as sectarian schools. We have schools which are divided in many ways. They're not, sectarian is the wrong word. That would give the impression that, you know, sort of there's malice within the school in order to make the students sectarian. That certainly isn't the case. There are just different schooling sectors, and whether we agree with them or not, you know, they do generally provide a very, very good education to children in Northern Ireland. However, there are issues, and that is that there are Catholic schools, and then there are de facto Protestant schools, but they're state schools, you know. So literally the state school sector is considered Protestant schools, and then you have Catholic schools, and then you have an integrated sector. And the integrated sector is excellent, and yet there's still some concerns there. All schools in Northern Ireland have a Christian ethos, including the integrated sector. And so there would be some concerns for us around that, and what the ethos of schools look like, and on how do we make inclusive ethoses. But saying that, you know, the integrated schools are generally a very good example for what we should be heading towards in Northern Ireland. With the integrated sector, you have around about 6 to 7% of children in Northern Ireland are taught in those types of schools. Yet around about 70 to 75% of parents would like to see their children integrated or being taught in integrated schools. The problem is the sector's tiny, and one of the key issues for us, and something which was written into the Good Friday Agreement for Northern Ireland 20 years ago, was the promotion of integrated schools. And it hasn't been promoted, and it hasn't been driven forward well enough by the government in Northern Ireland.
Mm.
So these would be some of the things that we would be saying in terms of our campaign stance. We would be saying, here's an issue. You'd said this in the Good Friday Agreement. This is something that you had said that you were going to carry out. Now we need to see a way forward for it. And that's, at the minute, that's a large body of the work that I carry out personally. As I said, I oversee all of the work here in Northern Ireland, but we have leads for each of our community services teams sections. So we have LGBT humanists, we have our dialogue section, we have our celebrants, we have our pastoral care, we have our school speakers. When it comes to our campaigns work and our sort of lobbying work, it's mostly left on me in terms of a team here in Northern Ireland, although I have amazing support from the London office and our public affairs team over there. But yeah, that's the way we sort of we tackle issues by going, well, what is it that we want to do and how are we going to achieve it, and then we go out there to achieve it. And as I said, education's a huge part of the work that I'll be doing over the next, ongoing. It's a huge part of it.
Yeah. As we have a strange situation in England, probably in Wales too, where after many years of the religiosity of schooling dwindling away to the extent that most schools now ignore the law which says they should have a morning assembly with Anglican content, but we, having had decades of that fizzling out period, we've now got a resurgence of faith schools that I think it was introduced, the concept was introduced by Tony Blair, was it, with academies?
Yeah.
And this has got to such an extent now that Alice Roberts, for example, the only schools that she can send her children to, their primary age, within reach, are religious schools.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge issue, and it's a huge issue in Northern Ireland as well. We have a lot of rural schooling and very little in the way of integrated skills in those areas for parents to at least feel that their children are going to somewhere which does not have an influence of one religion more so than the other, or one side of Christian religion more so than the other. But even within the last few days, there was an interesting story that came out a couple of days ago of a Catholic parent who felt that they were being discriminated against because they weren't able to get like a travel allowance to send their child to the nearest Catholic school, because the closest one to them was a non-religious school in England and Wales. So that's quite interesting that there's somebody saying, oh no, I'm being discriminated against. And it's like, well, have you not realized that this has been going on for quite some time for all those parents who are non-religious? And so, yes, there are concerns right across the board, both in England and Wales. In Northern Ireland, there are always these sort of more deep-seated issues when it comes to education. How, for example, did our state schools come into existence? Well, the legacy of it is that they were handed over by the Protestant Church. And at that time, when they were handed over by the Protestant Church, there was an agreement that there would be people from within the Protestant Church who sat on the boards of governors. And then, well, it's the boards of governors who decide what the RSE curriculum is or what the RE curriculum is. And it's top down in some ways. And then you have teachers who think, well, I'm Catholic, so therefore I can only teach in a Catholic school, or I'm Protestant, therefore I can't teach in a Catholic school, which again is sometimes there is the ability to discriminate, but that's not always the case. I mean, some recent studies on sort of teacher discrimination within Northern Ireland schools. Some of the comments by teachers were that they, for instance, a number of teachers thought that they had to be able to speak Irish to teach in a Catholic school, which is just not the case. So there's a misunderstanding of what is needed to be able to teach in each other's environments, and they're tiny numbers. I think it's like what the it's one way or the other. It's either there's 1% of Catholics who work in state schools, or it's 1% of Protestants who work in Catholic schools. I can't remember which way around it is, but they're tiny numbers anyhow. It's like 1% and 4% that would cross over. It's minute. So
yes.
these differences and these divisions are
exaggerated.
And have layers upon layers. Like, for instance, we were looking at school admissions. So whereas in England and Wales, in school admissions, there's lots of policy, and some of it's unfair and some of it needs change. In Northern Ireland, there kind of isn't any admissions policy. It's up to the school. And right. Generally speaking, the schools will say, we're welcome of anyone.
Yes.
But nobody does it because, it's like, oh, you might get special treatment if your parent had gone to the school. And it's like, that's a generational thing. So it starts to become, well, we've always sent them to that school, so we always will. And the division just stays. So I mean, we have the challenge at the minute in Northern Ireland that there's a need and there is a want by the vast majority of people for inclusive education for all. And I truly believe that even the likes of the Catholic Church understand that there are divisions in Northern Ireland and they need to be addressed in some way. Mm. The worry, I think, for a lot of faith-based teachers or people who are governors of schools is that we are maybe coming in and saying we want to do away with religion. And it's not really the case of that.
No.
It's about broadening the religious education curriculum. It's about broadening students' experiences. And I think, this is just going to take a matter of time in terms of dialogue and getting people to understand that we're not here to tell you're wrong or get rid of your religion. It's not. I find, religion and belief and philosophy incredibly interesting. We would somewhat be poorer without it, in terms of our understanding it. It's an incredibly interesting topic, but it also can be detrimental. And that's what we need to address, because it is detrimental to cohesive society in Northern Ireland. And we can make it better by working together. And so, like, for instance, some of the things that I've been thinking about recently are, well, what do I think about Catholic schools and Catholic education? Well, generally speaking, Catholic schools in Northern Ireland, have really good success rates in terms of their students. The schools are great. I've spoken in plenty of Catholic schools in Northern Ireland. The teachers have been accepting. The students have been engaging. So they're good. And I think I have this real sort of feeling that, okay, we want to see all schools and all kids educated together, but these are institutions that have lasted 120, 150 years. Northern Ireland, it's about how do we work together, and that's where it gets, again, where you've got two options. You can either go, I'm not getting involved in this, I don't want this, or you can go, this is interesting, let's see where this goes. And I think that's where I'm trying to get some of those people who have been a bit defensive in the past to take that step. And that's my next goal, to try and engage and get engagement. That's what I want.
You're open-minded, you're a liberal. I like the sound of that.
Yes.
But nobody, even if it was possible, nobody would want to ban religion. Nobody I know would want to ban it. What we want is to reduce fundamentalism and the division, the unnecessary division that causes in society.
Yeah.
Boyd, yeah. I love your passion.
Thank you very much, sir.
But we've overrun our time.
We have indeed.
I'm going to bring this to a close.
Not a problem, sir. Look, at any time, if you ever want me again, if you ever want to chat about anything, I would be happy to do so. And thank you for having me on.
Excellent. There will be another time, I guarantee you.
Great.
Thank you, Boyd.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.